Welcome into Warchant TV. This is Ira Schoffel, managing editor of Warchant.com, and I'm joined today by one of my favorite people in this business, a guy that I've known for many years. I'm not going to age him. I'm not going to date him and tell you how many years, but we've gone back a while. But he's a really outstanding coach. He's a former Florida State standout defensive back. Played in the '90s. Also has been coaching now for 20 something years, and he's an assistant coach and assistant head coach and cornerbacks coach at Florida A&M. They've got a huge game this week, the Celebration Bowl against Howard. And so we're going to talk about Coach Colzie's journey in coaching and also, this game this week and kind of his career in the business. Coach Colzie, and looking back at some good times at Florida State as well. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me today.
Good, man. So I know you coached, you got your starting coaching before you even GA'd at Florida State, right? Like I got to spend a lot of time with you when you were GA under Mickey Andrews in 2004, 2005. When I think you replaced Kirby. You might have been right after Kirby Smart.
And he didn't turn out very well, did he?
He did okay. He did okay for himself. I always tell people, I remember when we were both, 20-something-year-old kids or whatever. But what do you just talk a little bit about your journey. How did you decide to get into coaching? I know I think you come from a family of athletes and coaches. How did you decide to get into coaching?
Well, I mean, obviously having the career that I had at Florida State, and being around Coach Bowden and Coach Andrews, and then as you mentioned, my father being a head basketball coach and athletic director for multiple years. I mean, at the end of the day, once I was done playing, I always wanted to be a coach. So, a lot of my role models. My father, again, mentioning Coach Bowden and Coach Andrews, guys that have helped rear my future. I think coaching was going to be the ultimate goal once I was done playing.
So what was that experience like being a GA for Mickey Andrews? I mean, the stories are legendary. You played for him, so you've got those stories, but then also being a GA for him, how good was that experience?
Well, you got a chance to see the method to the madness, right? Obviously, being a player with him, playing for him, only being able to spend, 18 to 20 hours a week with him. But then now you're sitting in there every morning at 6:30 and then leaving every day at 10 o'clock with Coach Andrews, right? You got a chance to see how we game planned, how his thought process, how he went over film. I mean, with Coach Andrews, believe it or not, like he never said I was a grad assistant, right? When I came in, I took the job after Kirby had left. He's like, "Hey, Coach, you're going to coach the corners. That's what you're going to do. So you're not full-time, but, everything you're going to do is to get yourself ready to be a full-time coach." And I was treated as such, right? So, how we prepared, watching going over the film, how we tag film, things like that, right? So, I had Coach Andrews, and obviously we had Coach Steele as our linebackers guy, right? You had Coach Odell Higgins as the defensive line guy, Coach Tony Allen as the defensive end guy. So, we were always, it was, yes, the title was as grad assistant, but, Coach Andrews gave me the opportunity to, be treated as a full-time coach and opportunity to coach the corner. So that was great. He got on me as a grad assistant just like he got on me as a player. So trust me, that didn't change.
Yeah, I remember, I think that was pretty common, especially at that point of his career, to give that freedom to his GAs to let them coach the corners. And really that speaks to what he thought about you, but also, it speaks to him and as a leader and wanting to develop coaches and, and give back to the sport, I think is really cool. So you, going back to your playing days real quick. One of the funniest stories you've ever told that I've heard is, from the choke at Doak, where you had a huge interception of Danny Werfel in that game, basically kind of helped turn the game around for Florida State. But Coach Andrews wasn't in love with your decision on that play. Is that correct?
Well, we have, Coach Andrews was a stickler for the details. So, I obviously, I hear about the choke of the Doak all the time, and
right.
Had an interception, et cetera, et cetera. But the minute we get back and grade the film, I was awarded the big play of the game, on the defensive side of the football. But man, I also got a minus because I was looking at the quarterback. So a minus was a gasser. Then I got another minus for the celebration afterwards. So, I'm getting patted on the back for this amazing interception. But Coach, like I said, Coach Andrews was a stickler for the details. So hey, you had a missed assignment, you had bad alignment, you had bad technique. So you got to run your gassers. and you got to make it under 36 seconds, right? So, I'm like, Coach, I got an interception. He's like, Coach, I could care less about the interception if we do it the right way, and so I ran my gassers. And then right after I ran my gassers, he said, yeah, Coach. He said, Coach, that was a really big interception, but, you still got to pay the piper. So, which I did.
That, I mean, I know there's a million lessons you learned from him, but you bring up gassers. I just want to touch on that real quick. When did that stop, in college sport? Because it doesn't really happen anymore, right? I mean, Coach Andrews used to, well, I mean, it might still happen to some degree, but not like it did back in the day, right?
Oh, not at all. We have things like that now, but, they're not, the stuff we did kind of in the mid 90s or maybe in the early 2000s, right? It's not necessarily the norm right now. But we ran for a lot of mistakes. If we had any mistakes, that was the way to discipline us, right? It was to maybe have a couple gassers to make sure or to remind you not to do it again. Coach wouldn't call them discipline. He would just call them reminders.
Right.
We got to remind you to have the right leverage. We got to remind you to not make sure your eyes are in the right spot. So, it wasn't necessarily discipline aspects. They were just reminders. So, not necessarily. Don't get me wrong. We have run our guys before. Here at Florida A&M, we run our guys. But, there's not a guy at the line making sure he touches the line. There's not a guy. You don't have Coach Andrews sitting there making sure you're crossing at 36 seconds. Pat Watkins, who's a GA for us now, we often laugh at some of the stuff that Coach Andrews would make us do or had us do, just to make sure we were doing the right things at all times.
That's awesome. You have Coach Pat Watkins there. I think he would also say encouragement, maybe sometimes reminders and encouragement.
Well, trust me, it didn't feel like encouragement when we were doing them, but right. We got the gist.
Is the choke-a-doke? I mean, is that the highlight of college? I mean, obviously you on the national championship team, you had great experiences, but when people ask you what are the highlights, what do you mention?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Like I know, I had a couple of my players a couple of days ago talk to me about that interception. Coach,
really?
That's your interception. And I was like, hey guys, I actually had nine career interceptions. But everyone wants to talk about the choke of the doke.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. I would, for my parents graduating, right? I was able to graduate in 4 years, and then obviously having the opportunity to get a master's while being a grad assistant. So the education aspect was great. Believe it or not, like I have my first interception. I'll be honest with you, my first ever one as a true freshman at Florida. Getting a chance to go in and play, make a significant impact to that type of football game during that type of crowd. I was a true freshman. But choke-a-doke definitely is really, really high. But I often remember my first one because, in all actuality, you talk about the trust that Coach Andrews had. Corey Sawyer was hurt, right? I had to go out there and play field corner and, got a chance to pick off an out route, right? So I love the choke of the dope, but I often think about my first one.
Who was the receiver? Do you remember?
Oh, it was Jack Jackson. On the out route. Terry Dean threw an out route to Jack Jackson, and Coach Andrews always talked about beating him to the spot, and got a chance to do it, and got a chance to celebrate afterwards. So, that to me, I often think about that one as well.
It was pretty rare for guys to not redshirt back then. How did that come about?
Well, believe it or not, right? We were preseason ranked number 1. We had a lot of guys that were going to be All-American, All-Conference, things of that nature. Byron Capers and myself, we were highly touted coming out of high school, but you had Clifton Abraham and Corey Sawyer and Corey Fuller as guys that played prominent snaps throughout their careers. They were all conference, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know if you remember, like the first 2 or 3 days of training camp, Corey Fuller, blew his knee out.
Right.
Tiger McMillan blew his knee out. We had a lot of guys that were supposed to come back and play prominent snaps, and they got hurt early, right? So, also during that time, Warwick Dunn was playing corner at that time, right? So, we had, we were, it was a time where, Corey Fuller was the guy who played both sides. And again, ultimately played 10 years in the NFL, right? And then you had Clifton Abraham and Corey Sawyer that were going to be the field and the boundary corners, right? So, with Corey Fuller went down, they gave us the opportunity to play as freshmen. So we had to learn quick, and back, during those days, right? Coach Bowden was real big on 1s versus 2s, right? So we're Byron Capers and myself, we're second team corners, but we're going against Charlie Ward and Kevin Knox and Kes McCorvey. So, we had to get better fast. So, that was kind of the deal. We were highly touted also coming out. We had a real big class that year. You remember correctly, Scott Bailey was the guy on the cover. We had all these guys that were really, really good All-Americans coming back, but they chose to put Scott Bailey on the cover because of the type of class that we had, the class of 93. So, again, like Corey Fuller got hurt, gave us an opportunity. And we flew with it, right? We were beating teams, pretty handily. So we got a lot of early playing time. And like, I know you mentioned earlier, Coach Andrews trusting us, right? So, you didn't play for Coach Andrews if he didn't trust you. Right. So, again, like I said, we got early playing time. He trusted us throughout the year. Like I said, Corey got hurt at the end of the year against Florida. I got a chance to go out there, and I think I played I got a chance to play the third and, all the third quarter and up to the middle of the fourth. And like I said, had an opportunity to make a big play, during that time frame. So, but bottom line, Coach Andrews is the best. Not one of the best. He's the best defensive coordinator in the history of college football. He demanded a lot from us. And, you didn't play unless he trusted you. So that was one of the best, I would definitely say, is a highlight for me.
You mentioned your kind of why you got into coaching, but really, I've always been impressed how many guys that played for Florida State under Coach Bowden and Coach Andrews that got into coaching, whether it's high schools or colleges. And there's so many guys that played for those coaches that got into coaching. What do you think it was about, I guess, what you guys learned from them that inspired you guys?
Well, I think the biggest thing for and I'll use it, selfishly for myself, is just guys that, like, those guys it was bigger than football to them, I remember the meetings that we would have, the one-on-one meetings that we would have with Coach Andrews and Coach Bowden at any time. They were real big on, we always had our off day, but during that off day, we would go in and sit with our coach, right? And that on that off day with Coach Andrews, you couldn't talk football. Right, you couldn't talk football during those times, right? Because you had the 20-hour rule, et cetera, et cetera. So he would use that day to get to know us. He would use that day to ask about our families, right? And I think guys going into coaching now, like, we see it as, yes, you know what, we're coaching on those Friday nights or those Saturdays and it's football, but it's bigger than that, right? You're helping young men, see what it's like to help others. Right. So, I failed to mention Coach Amato as a guy who recruited me, but when he was recruiting me coming into my home, that was the biggest thing. It was, hey, Coach Bowden, yes, you're going to come play big time football. Yes, you're going to be coached by one of the best, but at the end of the day, you're going to ultimately become a young man that your parents are going to be proud of, academically, football wise, and socially.
So your career has taken you all over, literally. So you went up to, you went up to Canada to coach for a while.
Yes,
you were head coach up there. How did
yes.
that evolve, and what was that experience like?
Well, believe it or not, and I know you asked me this earlier, but I got
and to clarify, college football in Canada, correct?
Yes,
not
it's
CFL, right?
Yeah, the youth sports level, yes. So, we mentioned earlier about where I started before Florida State. So, I was at FIU, my first 5 years, and then I got the chance to come to Florida State as a defensive grad assistant. So, during that time, in 2007, kind of the year when we weren't doing as well as we needed to be. We had just finished winning the Emerald Bowl, and Coach Steele ultimately left to go to Alabama, right? So, defensively, we did some good things, but we didn't finish the way we necessarily needed to. So, ended up going to Valdosta State for a year. We won a national championship, I think, I was there for like 7 or 8 months. And then Coach Dickey, Daryl Dickey, who was the quarterback coach, during the time I was a GA, he got the opportunity to be the head coach at West Georgia. So he brought me over to be
real quick though, man. Those defenses in the mid 2000s were legit.
We were good, we were good. We had some really, really good players,
right?
But we were losing 2 or 3 games, right? Like, that was uncommon.
I got it, but people talk about that whole decade like it was bad, man. Those defenses were good.
We were good. I mean, there's a lot of NFL guys that played in that defense. A lot of them.
Sorry.
But then I went to Valdosta State, won a national championship. Coach Dickey hired me as his defensive coordinator in 2008 at West Georgia. So after that, right, I met my wife. Marissa, and she ended up, she's Canadian, right? So after West Georgia, I spent 5 years there. Then I spent a year in Southern Arkansas. So again, moving kind of all over the place. But I got an opportunity to be the defensive coordinator at a university in Vancouver, BC. So went there. My wife was there. We ended up winning a couple national championships. She won a national championship as the head soccer coach, and then I won a national championship as the defensive coordinator
Hmm.
at the same institution. So again, when you win, when you win, right, you get blessed with other offers. So then we both moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, a university called St. Mary's University. We spent 7 years there, 6 seasons. Got an opportunity to come back with Coach Simmons to be the assistant head coach, the cornerback coach here last year. So he didn't even have to ask me twice. When he called me, I said yes. I didn't even know what he was even offering me, but I just said yes, and got a chance to come back to some warm weather, and then obviously we're on our trek now of trying to win a national championship at the HBCU level.
What was football's football, but what was it like coaching up there? I mean, is it how highly do they value football? I guess.
Well, it's the youth sports level. It's Division One in Canada. You get what I mean? So there's 27 schools. We get full scholarships. The only difference is the oddities of the game, right? There's 12 men on the field.
Okay.
A lot bigger field. You got the goalpost kind of sitting right at the goal line.
So is it like CFL rules?
Oh, it's CFL. It's CFL.
Oh, okay.
It's CFL, but just Canadian football, right? Canadian university football. Excuse me. So all of our guys, right? I think I had about 12 guys get drafted into the CFL during my time frame. But there are, believe me, for 6 years I was learning something new every day about the Canadian football game, right? So I actually picked up something this year that was very, very new. I didn't even know anything about. But there are some different types. There are some different things in the game. The motion and the people all over the place, and nobody's ever offsides.
The receivers can be running straight ahead, right?
Yeah, we have to be really, really good with your overhang defense because those guys can come from one side of the field to the other. So, again, I will tell you this. I mean, some of the stuff that we did in the Canadian level, right, we're doing here now as far as some stuff that we're doing defensively. So, it taught me a lot, right? Because, and I will say this, in the NCAA level, you have a lot of people at your hand. You got GAs, you got quality control, you got all that stuff. At the Canadian level, I was the head coach, but I was also the defensive coordinator, and I was also doing scripts, right? I had about 5 or 6 hats I had to wear on a daily basis, right? So I had to learn how to, make sure I was monopolize my time, right? I had to make sure I was always on the, I was always as about as structured as I could be, because if I got behind in one thing, that means I got behind on other stuff throughout the day. So, we didn't have 20 coaches. We had like 5 to 6 guys every day that would work their tail off for me.
So how much fun has it been to really focus on corners? The position you played.
We had the luxury of having 2 guys first team all conference this year. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's been done in quite some time. I had some really, really good players. It's a different game from a corner position, at the corner perspective in the mid '90s, right? Compared to what these guys are having to do right now. I'd be a D3 corner right now with some of the guys that I have. You know what I mean? So. A lot of the guys I'm playing with really, really, they're super athletic. They can absolutely fly. The offense that we're going against, everything's up tempo. They're spreading you out, things like that. So, but it's a different technique that I'm teaching the corners compared to what our safeties coach is coaching. So our corners need that specific help, right? The safeties need that specific help from individual coaches. So, but Coach Andrews has taught me a lot. We talked a lot about leverage. We talked a lot about your eyes, the discipline aspect of playing corner. So trust me, there's a lot of things that I'm using from Coach Andrews for what teaching our guys. But there's also, there are some other perspectives that I have to use with some of the stuff that we're asking our guys to do currently.
So is it just, the difference in athletes today, is it just the year-round training that kids get now? Is that why?
Don't get me wrong. You're talking about at the high school level or at the college level?
Just eat both. You get guys coming out of high school now that look like they can go to the NFL.
Yeah. There's definitely, I didn't work out until I got in front of Coach Van, right? Coach Van Hallen was our strength and conditioning coach, and I'm 153 pounds. Coach Van, we got a lot of work. We got a lot of work to do, right? Now, you got these guys in 10th grade. I got a chance to watch the state playoffs this past weekend because we were hosting. These guys look different. Mm-hmm. These guys look different. They're 6'2" and playing wide receiver. You got 6'3" guys, playing wide receiver, right? So, you got defensive ends now that, they're truly 6'5", 265 pounds, and can run. So I think they're training earlier. They're getting more exposure. You got guys flying all over the country doing 7-on-7. Getting the opportunity to play, right? Where myself, when I did football season, then that was done, right? Then I had to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't that prioritizing of a young man playing one sport and then training throughout the year at that one individual sport, right? So
Right.
it's a different, absolutely, but it's working out. It's working out for some.
When you obviously a lot of people know of Willie Simmons before he came to Florida A&M. He's been a successful coach, successful career. Did you know him before he called you? Did you guys have a relationship?
Well, we had a relationship before. Willie, Coach Simmons was a G at Clemson when I was at Florida State, and then, kind of when I was coaching at FIU, when I always had the Tallahassee area. He was at Lincoln High School. You know what I mean? So Google's very, very easy to find out about people, and you realize how big time of an athlete he was coming out of high school. Obviously, having the opportunity to go to Clemson, we met at a couple different things, and then him calling me or him talking to me about the job, right? There was a relationship built before that. Right, we would communicate while I was in Canada. I would just check on him, see how he's doing. He would check on me to see how I was doing. So, we had a somewhat of a relationship once the opportunity arose. But he was a big time quarterback coming out of high school. I know him and Charlie Ward got the same birthday. So hey, he was a big time Charlie Ward fan. So who wasn't a big time Charlie Ward fan coming up out of high school? So we've connected on that level. But yeah, we knew each other before. So when I got the phone call, it was full go. As long as I didn't mess up the interview, it was gonna be full go once he offered the job.
What's it been like working with him? Is he have you been able to learn things from him? What makes him successful? You guys are obviously having a tremendous success over there.
Well, he does a great job, obviously, as a leader, right? He doesn't worry about any of the outside things, right? We have this saying where be where your feet are, right? So, and all the outside stuff, he's not worried about any of that. The biggest thing he talks about is making sure that the football team is going in the right direction. We're coaching our positions to the best of our ability, and we're handling our guys, right? We're making sure we're handling our guys in the right way. And he was at Clemson, right? He's been at some big time programs before. He understands what it takes. He understands what it needs. And he's a great leader as a head coach, and he's a great offensive coordinator. He's doing a heck of a job dialing up some things I didn't ever think he would do, and he's doing them. So, but again, he's doing a great job as a leader, and obviously it's a great job as the offensive coordinator of this football team. But like I said, he's present. He's always present, being where he needs to be, making sure, again, we get what we need and making sure our guys are doing what they need to do.
What's it like? Can you feel the history there? Because, when during the summer I went up to the College Football Hall of Fame, they had a really nice display for Coach Gaither and Florida A&M's history. I mean, can you feel the history there?
Well, we didn't really get the luxury when I was playing at Florida State, right? So, I'm talking about, when I was playing here, we never really, it always felt when we had a home game, they might have been on the road. Mm-hmm. If we were on the road, they were home. So I didn't really get a chance to really venture over here as much as I would have liked to. But then you don't have to worry about the history, right? I mean, the history's here when we play. I mean, we got people from all walks of life coming to home games. Mm-hmm. Right, so you obviously you can't walk in the building without seeing Coach Hubbard, Coach Gaither, right, mm-hmm. Coach Billy Joe. Those are guys you see walking into the building, right? Their names are everywhere on the building. The big time wins, the championships, things of that nature. So you see that right when you walk in, right? But as far as the tradition and the support that we get, right? Again, you see that when we do our walk before the games. You see that just being in the community with the numerous supporters that we have, that really, really love Florida A&M, right? So, do I feel it? Yes. Do I see it? Yes. And like I said, I wish I would have had a better grasp or a better understanding, while I was playing at Florida State.
I know you still sneak into some FSU sporting events sometimes. Absolutely. Still supporting your Noles.
Of course.
What did you get to see much of this season?
Well, I've missed every reunion, right? I missed every single thing because I'm coaching too. So, but If there's an opportunity to watch them on TV, absolutely.
Mhm.
Right. We played Miami. We played Miami the same night, two home games, because you only could imagine how I felt not being able to go watch go watch our team play the University of Miami, right? So, anytime I get a chance to watch them on TV, absolutely. I just hate the fact that I've missed so many reunions, but
Right.
you get it, when you're doing the same thing, you're coaching in Vancouver, you're coaching in Halifax, you're coaching in Arkansas, you're coaching in Georgia. It's tough to make some of those things, but I get a chance to keep in contact with a lot of my former teammates.
And then, so this week you got the big the Celebration Bowl in Atlanta.
Yes.
You guys are going to be taking over Atlanta. It sounds like a lot of festivities, a lot of activities, and then the game. You're
Right.
playing Howard. What what's this like getting to play for the HBCU national championship?
Well, I think you kind of it's going to the bowl games, right? We're understanding the value of how important is these practices that we're having right now, right? Being a part of numerous bowls, right? You got to make sure we take care of the details here, right? And make sure once we do get to Atlanta, lock in on the important things, right? Yes, we got dinners we got to be at, and lunches that we have to be at, but once we get there, when it's meeting time, we take care of our meeting time. Coach Simmons is doing a great job of allowing our guys the opportunity to spend time with family, because family, everybody's gonna want a piece of them while they're in Atlanta.
Mhm.
But he's also doing a great job of making sure our guys understand that, hey, when it's football time, we can't lose sight of that. So we got a lot of things that they got to do, but including in that is meetings, is special teams meetings, is defensive meetings. We're gonna practice Thursday morning in Atlanta. So just making sure our guys are locked in when it's time to be locked in. All right, it's gonna be our first game that we play at 12 o'clock on a Saturday. We haven't played very many at 12, so
Mhm.
getting our guys used to that kind of atmosphere and getting ready to play at that time. But if we can get our guys locked in at the proper things, at the important things, once during football hour, right? We should be fine.
Awesome. Well, listen, man. The Noles didn't get to play for a championship this year, or at least the national championship.
Right.
But hopefully, a lot of FSU fans are going to cheer for you and the Rattlers this Saturday, because that's really cool, a cool opportunity. And
Please
we're,
do.
we're happy for you, man. And enjoy catching up, Coach. And we'll talk again soon.
Hey, same here, man. I'll see you at another basketball game really, really soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right,
See you.
boss. Thank you.